and that's where they had Hoffa by the arm standing at the edge of that hole uh, as he was screaming for help. And all of a sudden, they just pushed him in the hole. He wasn't hit in the head. He wasn't shot. None of that. He didn't. He was just standing there. It looked like he was scared to death. And they pushed him in the hole, Chip. And all of a sudden, the ball on the cement truck started turning real fast. And I could see the cement gushing out the truck down the gurney straight into the hole until they buried this man with a truckload of cement.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Crime and Entertainment. We have here today an individual with an extraordinary story here that happened to him when he was young. And Michael, from what I understand, this thing's picking up a little bit of steam here lately. Your story's starting to finally get some attention paid to it. You claim to know the whereabouts of Jimmy Hoffa.
Yes, sir. I mean, I'm one of few people that's still alive that has came forth, Chip, to actually say something about it. I don't know if everybody else was afraid to come forth, but as far as I know, I'm the only person out here that has came forth to actually say that I was there to see this man lose his life by the mob.
Right. Okay, so little background on you, like kind of where you grew up, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of this story. So who is Michael Yarbrough?
Well, Chip, I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I mean, I'm from Benton Harbor, Michigan, and I moved to Detroit in 1977. But I was visiting Detroit back in 1975 when I graduated out of Benton Harbor High School, which is down on Lake Michigan
Hmm.
near Chicago. I was born and raised in Benton Harbor. I was getting ready to go to Fair State College that year, me and my sister in Big Rapids, Michigan, for my freshman year in August. We were supposed to be there in August for to enroll, and my older sister was already at Fairs. She was getting ready to graduate the next year in 1976. So she was visiting my oldest brother and his wife in Inkster, Michigan in 1975 of July the 30th, the day that Hoffa came up missing.
Hmm.
And she called me down in Benton Harbor. She said, "Hey, Mike, I had just had a son that year. He was born July the 15th. My birthday is July the 10th. And 5 days later, I had my, my oldest son. And my sister told me, she said, Mike, why don't you come up to Detroit? They got jobs up there. They're hiring in the factory. They're hiring in the Renaissance Center they just built. So she said, why don't you just weigh the odds and put your priorities in perspective? What's most important, taking care of your responsibilities or getting your education right now.
Hmm.
So I said, well, okay, I'll just come on up there. So I got my 1970 Firebird Pontiac, uh, green Firebird Pontiac. I think I sent a picture of it to you.
Yes, you
And I,
did. I can throw it up on the screen here in post.
yeah, and I shot up to Detroit down I-94, headed east on I-94 to Detroit, but I stopped in Inkster, Michigan, where my brother and his wife and my sister was staying, and which is 20 minutes out of Detroit. So I stopped there and I sit down. We talked for a little while, and then I decided I'd sit down and watch a little TV. So then all of a sudden the news came on, and there was this message to the Metro Detroit area people. They needed to hire people at the Renaissance Center because they were in the process of having a bicentennial grand opening the following year, 1976, spirit of 1776 and 1976.
Mhm.
So Mayor Coleman Young, who was the mayor at that time, and Henry Ford III, I think it is, or yeah, Henry Ford III, decided that they needed to fill all these job positions prior to having the grand opening in 1976. So they invited the public in the building. You know, they was finished with phase one, so they was getting ready to start phase two. So phase one was already complete, so they invited the public in to see how beautiful the building was and everything. So got in my car again and shot down to Detroit downtown, and I parked my car in the parking structure on the Atwater side, which is adjacent to the Detroit tunnel. I mean, the Canadian tunnel. So pulled up in the parking structure. I got out of my car. They had it so accessible back then. You could just park your car, and get out the car, go right in the door, and it was beautiful in there, man. It still is. They had waterfall there. You can throw your money in there, make a wish. They had all types of restaurants. They had a movie theater. They had all kind of stuff in the building. They still do.
I seen
So
the Facebook video you sent me where you're walking around in there. It looks nice in there.
yeah, yeah, and it's even better because GM had taken over and they had their cars all on display. And even though they're moving out next year, we're still trying to get in the building and do a search before the FBI shuts it down and say we can't go in there because of their jurisdiction and all of that. You know, but
Right.
right now we got permission to go in the building because it's private property owned by GM. We have green light to go in. Hopefully, like, that'll be getting done in the next week or so before they move out next year, and we'll go in there and find the remains. But anyway, as I got out my car in the parking structure, I went in the building. I went on uh, first floor. There was a security guard sitting at the desk there in the front, and I asked him about the temporary employment agency that you go to in the building to get jobs. It's called Clean America. So asked the security guard, I said, "Where's Clean America?" He said, "You go down the escalator there and make a right to the ground floor." So I went to the ground floor, Chip, and for some odd reason, something told me to make a left instead of a right. So I made a left, and it took me through Tower 200, which was complete. They had completed phase one, like I said, uh, Tower 200, Tower 400, and Tower 100, and partially the hotel structure was already complete. It was just partially complete, which is one of the most tallest hotels in America, as far as I know. It was called the Westin Hotel back then, but now it's called the Marriott. So I kept on going around to my left. It goes in a circular motion, the building. So I was going to my left. I went through Tower 200, which was empty. It was a lot of office space and different stuff, but it was empty. And I continued on to Tower 300, which was not complete yet. That was part of phase two, which was Tower 300, 500, and 600. So when I got to Tower 300, which was not complete, it was a giant plastic hanging, with the kind you can't see through.
Mhm.
And above that, there was yellow cords hanging with white lights all over the place. And just right to my right there was a ramp going up like maybe 4 inches, yellow ramp going up to another door. And behind that yellow ramp, it said authorized personnel only, hard hats, safety glasses, and steel toe shoes only, authorized. So, at that moment, I heard somebody screaming for help, real loud, man, like help, real loud. So I'm thinking, well, okay, man, this construction worker got hurt. I can go in there and help him, as a citizen. So I went through the door, and as I opened the door, there was this cement ramp going down, real steep. like to the basement level. So I entered into it. I stepped on the ramp. I went down. I hurt my back trying to go down that ramp because it was so steep. When I got to the bottom of the ramp in the basement area, there was dirt everywhere. There was those lights, yellow lights. You could see white, yellow cords, white lights. You could see them hanging all over the place. I mean, fully hanging then. And there was this 8 foot wooden fence that they don't even make them like that no more. But I'm 6'5", so the fence was had to be 8 feet because I'm standing right next to it. I'm looking out, trying to tiptoe and look over the fence. And as I was looking, I'm still hearing this man yell for help. So I looked up, and there was these two guys standing there with these black suits on, black tie, white shirt, and these John Belushi style shades they had on. I couldn't tell who they were, but the man that was in the middle that they were holding by the arms, I could see his face clearly, and he was shorter than the two guys that was holding him by the arms. These two guys were white males. They looked like they was about in their late 30s or early 40s. And immediately behind them, I saw a maroon colored 1975 Mercury Marquise with his lights on, trunk up, and the door, the driver's door was open, and I could see this fat, chubby guy sitting behind the wheel, white guy with sideburns. He had this wide collar, the type of collars we were wearing back then in the 70s.
Mhm.
And just next to him, just next to the two guys that had Hoffa in the middle, was this construction worker. He was hammering on the cement real hard, trying to drown the man out. They was screaming for help, but I could still hear him hollering for help because I'm standing right there looking at him. And directly behind them, to their right, was a cement truck sitting back in on this slope. It was like a slope, dirt, all dirt up there. You could see the light coming in from the street, Bobian Street, on the southeast corner of the building. Uh, the truck was sitting there with the ball turning real slow, and the gurney was coming out the front of the truck onto the side of the cement truck, all the way down to this great big hole that they were constructing. It was a pillar. Uh, on this pillar, they had 4 tiers on it. The first 3 tiers, which consisted of, I would say, 19, maybe 8 to 10 feet each tier up horizontally. I mean vertically. The first 3 tiers were already cured, but the fourth tier, 8 to 10 feet uh, tier, tier in that pillar was empty, and that's where they had Hoffa by the arm standing at the edge of that hole uh, as he was screaming for help. And all of a sudden, they just pushed him in the hole. He wasn't hit in the head. He wasn't shot. None of that. He didn't. He was just standing there. Looked like he was scared to death. And they pushed him in the hole, Chip. And all of a sudden, the ball on the cement truck started turning real fast, and I could see the cement gushing out the truck down the gurney straight into the hole until they buried this man with a truckload of cement. So as I was standing there looking at this, I was like, wow, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I looked to my right, and there was the third mobster came. That was, I guess he was the lookout man or something. He was casing the area, and he walked up to me. He was dark, dark color hair guy, white guy. He had the same identical clothing that the other two guys had on that was holding the man in the middle. And he took his John Belushi style shades off and looked me directly in my eyes. And you could see that he had done killed several people. The way I could tell, that he was a dangerous man. He
That look in
opened
their eye. Yeah.
yeah, you could tell he done killed several people. I was just 18 at the time, and I could tell there was something about this guy. I mean, my dad used to look me in my eyes, and I could tell he would kill me. So I know what the murderous looking eyes look like. Anyway, he said, "You better keep moving, or you're going to be next." So I threw my hands up in the air. I said, "Man, you got to worry about me. I'm out of here." So I was 18, just got out of high school, and he opened his coat, showed me his gun. So I knew he wasn't playing. So I walked away about 15 feet. I looked over my shoulder, and he was coming at me full force. So, I was young. I just got out of high school. Shoot, I was 18, running track, high hurdles, and cross country. He couldn't catch me. So I ran on down the way there, which was toward the west side of the building by the Canadian Tunnel, and I saw this men and women's restroom. So I ran in. I didn't even see people around. I was so hysterical and scared. I didn't even notice nobody around at the time. I just ran in the bathroom. I ran in the first stall that I saw. They had like 12 stalls back in '75. They only got like four now. But I got up on top of the toilet and I was shaking like Don Knotts, man. I was peeing on myself. So as I stood on top of the toilet, you could see there was a 3 to 4 foot area at the bottom of the stall. There you could see the front door of the bathroom. So I saw him step into that doorway there with his black shoes on. He just stood there for like 3 seconds. And then he just turned around and walked away. I'm like, wow, he didn't kill me. So I waited a few more seconds and then I got the courage enough to come out of the stall. I looked to my right, I looked to my left, got to the door, I looked to the left, I looked to the right. I didn't see him. So I went on down to the left. I saw a door down there. It looked like it was about 15 feet down. I went to that door, I opened the door, and that was exactly where the truck was, the cement truck, and where they had pushed him in the hole and everything. So I got scared again. So I ran back in the building. I went over on the Atwater side over by the Canadian Tunnel, Tower 400, and I looked to the Detroit River on the corner of Tower 400. And all of a sudden, I saw this burgundy car that I had just seen with the trunk up and the lights on, and the chubby fat guy coming around the corner real slow with his lights on. So I got scared again. I ran back in the building. Ran to Tower 100, got on the toilet there, stayed in there about 10 or 15 minutes on top of the toilet. Again, I don't know what possessed me to get on top of a toilet, but that was the only thing I could think of, a place to hide. So I went in there. I stayed about 10 minutes, 15 minutes, got out. I went to go look for my green Firebird Pontiac. I couldn't remember exactly where I had parked there because I'm not from Detroit. I'm from Ben Harbor, and the city looks so huge to me, man. You could easily get lost in the Renaissance Center because it's a big, big building. So I finally stumbled around over in there and found my car where I parked there. I got in the car and I went back to Inkster, Michigan, about 15, 20 minutes back west on 94. And when I got back to my eldest brother's house, him and his wife was there. My sister was there. And I said, y'all not going to believe what I just saw. I said, I just seen somebody get buried down at the Renaissance Center. So, shortly after, this was about 4 o'clock, maybe in the afternoon. We pushed him in the hole about 3:20. I got to Inkster in about 10 or 15 minutes. So it was close to 4 o'clock. All of a sudden, breaking news came on the channel 2, channel 4, and channel 7 saying Jimmy Hoffa, former Teamster president Jimmy Hoffa, is missing. So I'm like, wow, that's the man I just saw get pushed in the hole downtown. And they said, Mike, if I were you, I'd leave that alone, man. That's the mob, man. They kill you and our whole family. So I said, what? Yeah, I didn't know nothing about the mob, no more than in history. They started talking about La Costa Nostra. They was changing the name back in 1975 from the mob to La Costa Nostra at the time. So I had heard about the mob, Al Capone and different stuff because he had frequented areas in Ben Harbor before. Hotels. I have frequented one of his houses on Colfax in Ben Harbor. There was a tunnel in the kitchen where you could go down and you could see Ben Harbor High School football field when you get down there. And it's in one of his movies as well, Capone. But anyway, as I told my sister and my brother and his wife about it. They told me to leave it alone. So the next day, it was another breaking news flash on TV, same channels, saying this man was missing. So I was getting ready to go back the next day on the 31st to Benton Harbor because me and my sister had to register in Bear State College in Big Rapids real soon. So I just went on back to Benton Harbor because my idea was not to try to get a job. Now I wasn't thinking about a job after all that. Shoot, I'm going to college. So I got back to, I woke up the next day on the 31st, saw the breaking news flash again that this man was missing. So I went back downtown before I headed back to Benton Harbor because I couldn't believe what I had saw. I had to see, did this really happened? So I went back down to the Renaissance Center again. I parked in the same parking area, got out of my car, went back over there to where this all happened at, excuse me, Tower 300, and it was real smooth off. The area where they had pushed him in the hole, it had already cured. It was nice and fresh and smooth. They had buried him, and adjacent to that was another pillar with another hole, just like the one they had pushed him in, and it was still empty. So they had two. Every tower has two major pillars up underneath the ground floor to hold up the structure. So that hole was still empty. So I'm thinking, wow, I mean, was that for me? I'm hoping it wasn't, because you know they didn't catch me anyway because I believe the reason why Thomas Andretta, the guy who chased me in the mob, didn't catch me is because I was told by Michael Francis out of the Colombo crime family out of
Hmm.
New York that they don't they don't have if they don't have orders from the main boss to kill someone, then they could possibly be killed for doing that. So that's the main reason, sir, why I'm still here to be able to talk about this situation and tell the world, hopefully, that Jimmy Hoffa is buried underneath the Renaissance and been there for like almost 50 years now.
Jeez. So did you know who Jimmy? You didn't have a clue who Jimmy was really before you seen him on the news.
No, I didn't know the man from a can of paint. I didn't know who the mob was. These guys were dressed up in black suits, black tie, white shirt, John Belushi style shade, like they was going to a wedding or a funeral. Well, they were
Right.
going to a funeral. You know.
And you recognize one of the men as Thomas Andretta?
Yeah, Thomas Andretta, I recognized his face later on. Later on, I was reading a mob book in the one of the Detroit libraries that Scott Bernstein had wrote, and I opened the book in 2017, and I noticed the picture of Thomas Andretta, Stephen Andretta, and Anthony Tony Provenzano in the book. And
Right.
here again, I'm saying, wow, that's the man that chased me down the Rancid. That's how I identified Thomas Andretta and identified Chucky O'Brien and Jimmy Hoffa. I identified Jimmy Hoffa on the breaking news flash. They popped his picture, big picture of him on TV. And that's how I identified him, saying, wow, that's the man I just seen get buried. And identified Chucky O'Brien, uh, several pictures that came about saying he was Hoffa's surrogate son or something like that.
Right.
He's all in the news, but I noticed his face, but I didn't know what was this all about. You know what I mean? It all came to me afterwards. Identifying Chucky O'Brien, identifying Thomas Andretta, Stephen Andretta, and Provenzano, and all the rest of these cats. Man,
So you're
it's
saying
crazy.
that Chucky was there present when Hoffa was pushed in the hole?
Yes, sir. And there's other witnesses, not only me, that can testify. Well, they're dead now, but their son is testifying who that was, Chucky O'Brien. Matter of fact, if you get this book right here, this book will tell you that Chucky O'Brien was actually driving the vehicle that day. This is written by David Tubman.
Right.
His mother and father, knew Chucky O'Brien personally, and they know for a fact that that was Chucky driving the car. And when they described him, that really gave me understanding who this guy was because I was looking right at him. He had the sideburns, a wide collar. And he was Hoffa's driver.
Mhm.
Serious.
So, all right. So, a couple questions I want to get into. One, when did you first come out and start telling people that you've seen this?
Well, I first came out, Chip, the same day.
Okay.
I when I went back home, at my brother's house, I told them immediately.
Right.
And I kept telling, my sister about it, all the way up to 1977. I kept telling her about it because I moved up here in 77. I was staying with my sisters.
Mhm.
And in the Jeffersonian apartments on East Jefferson, which is not too far from the Renaissance Center. And I told her husband, first husband, about it. He's a Detroit police officer. He told me the same thing, Mike. Leave that alone, man. It's bigger than the both of us, man. It'll kill you and the whole family. And ironically speaking, in 1980, they killed his father. The Teamsters, somebody killed his father because he owned a trucking company. He didn't want to merge with the Teamsters, so they killed him. So it was really getting close to home now. And prior to that, in 1977, I used to sit on the balcony and with my telescope and binoculars and look down east of Detroit, and it was this gas station down there. And I used to see this guy. He looked like he had puffy hair. He was a white guy with thick glasses. Come to find out, that was Anthony Tony Jack alone
Yep.
at the pump. He would be pumping gas down there all the time because he lived in Grosse Pointe, not too far from the Jeffersonians in downtown. So I kept seeing him pumping gas all the time. So one day in 77, I was getting ready to go enroll in college at Wayne County Community College District on 4th Street downtown. So I got on the bus, Jefferson bus, went downtown, got off at 4th Street. I was walking down Shelby Street, Shelby and Fort, which is on the way to WC3. And on the corner of Fort and Shelby, there's this building, and there was a whole lot of black Cadillacs parked on the side of this building with Mafia Company car tags on the front. And as I was looking at the cars, I looked behind me and I saw Anthony Tony Jack alone walking toward me. And when I looked at him, he turned around real quick and put his head down in the newspaper to act like he was reading the paper. So I'm wondering, like, wow, is he trying to figure out who I was? I had already cut my hair off and everything, trying to disguise myself because in '75 I was wearing a Jerry curl. What I had on that when Hoffa got killed, I had a Jerry curl, I had shades on, I had a Harley Davidson T-shirt on and some blue jean Levi's and some green. I had some green All Star Chuck Taylor tennis shoes. I sent you a picture of
Yeah.
those tennis shoes that I had on. Uh, well, they were green tennis shoes, the same color as my car.
Yeah.
Monster green. It wasn't my favorite color, but it was the colors I was wearing back then.
Right. Now, I mean, did you have any, knowing that these guys were, you know, hooked in with the mob and the mob from that, part of town, did you have any reservations about, because the more time that went by, you eventually started speaking to news outlets and producers and things like that. Did you have any reservations from doing this or?
Well, I held back, Chip, for 27 years. I
Right.
came forth. I first came forth to the Detroit FBI November of 2002. It's been 23 years now that they've known about this, my information, and they've been searching high and low everywhere else but downtown Detroit at the Renaissance. And I'm like,
Right.
I'm coming to them. I'm an eyewitness. I'm a retired corrections officer for the state of Michigan. I mean, why are they not believing what I'm saying? They believe in all these mobsters, the ones who killed him, but they're not believing an ordinary citizen like me that's in criminal justice and corrections. We got to carry the same our same badge and gun and cuffs and all that. I worked with them while I was in the prison. The FBI would come sometimes. The Michigan State Police would come, but recently in 2018, I got the Michigan State Police homicide We did a walkthrough at the Renaissance Center, the whole 9 yards with GPS and camera. And the detective, he documented all that stuff. And 6 months later, somebody down at the FBI in Detroit called him and told him to cease and desist because it's not his jurisdiction. It's the FBI's jurisdiction. So he discontinued searching. But I talked to the head guy down at the FBI. He said he didn't authorize anybody to say do that. You know, he's over the Hoffa task force, and he said he did not authorize anybody at the FBI to tell the state police not to do a search there. I mean, the Michigan State Police has been searching for Hoffa ever since the day one.
Hmm.
So really don't make sense. Somebody's down there trying to cover up this finding this man's human remains. I don't
Yeah.
want to get into that, but it's somebody, I don't know if they paid by the mob, working in their groomed or what, but it don't sound right. Don't sound good at all.
Well, and that's not an uncommon thing to see people in police rankings and police positions being paid off and bribed to keep the investigations from heading certain ways. Did the police, when you started coming forward, did they give you any sort of inclination as to why? Or did they brush it off as they didn't believe you? They didn't really find your story credible. What was the reasoning why they didn't put a little bit more um I guess emphasis on your search? And the only reason I ask that is there's been numerous places dug up, numerous places checked. Even recently they've been digging places, looking for them. So it's not something that they just really don't care about. So I'm wondering, right there in the home state of Detroit, why, Detroit, Michigan, why they didn't, maybe take you a little bit more serious and at least check it out.
Well, because I'm hot on the trail, Chip. That's the only thing I can think of. And then there's bigger fish to fry. Open the can of worms here, man. I mean,
Mhm.
a lot of people could be implicated behind this, and somebody just don't want the truth to come out. That's
Right.
why I'm on your show today to try to get some closure to this case, even though most of the people, the perpetrators, are dead, other than Gabriel Bergoglio out of New Jersey. I didn't remember seeing him at the crime scene anyway, but
Hmm.
the FBI has that information on file of who all the suspects are. I mean, majority of the suspects are dead. So it's not all about who did it. It's about where is the body. You
Right.
know.
Yeah, it
So
is. I think now is the biggest thing is where's the body. And there's been rumors that he's everywhere from the middle of the Meadowlands and Giant Stadium
yeah,
to
that's right.
and
That's right.
farms to if you have you watched the film The Irishman?
Yeah, yeah. All that's fake fictitious. Frank Sheeran, he put those rumors out that he killed Hoffa, but Frank didn't kill Hoffa. Frank, the man was not shot. He was not hit in the head with no shovel. He was pushed in the hole, and I didn't see Frank at the crime scene. So all that was just a lie.
Mhm. Yeah, because I mean, that's probably one of the most movies I would say that Scorsese's done, and he's done quite a few mob movies. It was really kind of, I guess, picked apart a little bit as far as the truth. And a lot of
Yeah,
people have, debated and gave their opinions. You talked with Eric Shine about this, right, from Fox News?
yeah. I talked to Eric a lot. He'll be back down here next year. We're gonna finish the riddle, the search for James R. Hoffa. I did a walkthrough at the Renaissance Center with Eric last year, April the 4th of 2023. And while we were down there, we discovered some new evidence at the crime scene. Stuck in the side of Hoffa's grave was a hard hat. I sent you a picture of that too, a construction
Hmm.
worker's hard hat, which probably dates back to the time when Hoffa got killed. Might be DNA evidence on that hard hat. I don't know. But so far, the only evidence they have is that hard hat, the FBI, and the burgundy Mercury Marquise, 75 Mercury Marquise. So, with that evidence that I presented to Detroit FBI, they still haven't moved on the crime scene yet. So, right now, I got two private investigators that are willing to go into the building. I've got authorization from GM Global Security that we don't have to have a search warrant to go in. The only thing holding us up now, Chip, is $1,000 to get the ground penetration crew to come down and do the search. So that's where we are right now.
All right. Now, you've also spoken with Scott Bernstein on this before.
Yeah, Scott, we're doing a podcast right now about this, just like we are right now. And Scott, he wrote my first article about Jimmy Hoffa back in 2016 called "A Gangster Report."
Hmm.
He
OG.
also
Yep.
yeah, OG. He also interviewed Michael Francis out of Colombo crime family in New Jersey. I mean, in New York.
Yeah.
And me and Mike's been talking for quite a while. He has information about the whereabouts of Hoffa, that which somewhat fits what I'm talking about.
Hmm.
So, me and Mike has been talking about it. Like he says that Hoffa's buried in a wet place. Yeah,
Hmm.
he is buried in a wet place, very wet. Renaissance Center was built with over the most concrete cement than any other structure in America. So, this is where he's at, and one of the most, and it was mob controlled as well. So
Hmm. Now, I've heard
back,
some of Scott's narratives in the past. Where does he sit with what you say? Is he a believer? Is he a skeptic? Is he just doing his due diligence in journalism? Where does Scott sit with your story?
well, Scott's basing his story on research and writing, as
Right.
most journalists do.
Right.
I was a journalist back in 1973, and I did the same thing. But the only difference between me and Scott's tactics with this reporting is I used to go after those people that actually saw something,
Right.
was actually there. You know. But Scott's doing it based upon what he's heard and what other, which is cool. But I mean, and then he's putting together a lot of ad lib and stuff
Hmm.
with us, as far as his theories are concerned, what he believes happened based upon these mob characters that he knows about that was
Hmm.
close by. But ain't nothing wrong with that. But it can be misleading if you don't put the real eyewitnesses' testimony in that really saw something to really come up to a workable conclusion as to what really happened. I
No.
think it's an advantage, to have someone that's actually sit there and stood there and saw what happened, and people that actually knew Hoffa. Uh, I mean, knew Chucky O'Brien, uh, to come to a conclusion as who the driver was, uh, versus and who the actual perpetrators was, who was at the crime scene that actually killed Hoffa.
Hmm.
So I think that's important. It's a blessing that I'm here to be able to tell Scott Bernstein what I saw. And I think that he finally opened up to say, well, hey, you don't see nothing wrong with me, putting my story out there. But it took a long time for him to really be convinced because he
Hmm.
stuck on what he believed. There is no body. He believes that the body was incinerated at some Hamtramck incinerator because it
Hmm.
got burnt down 6 months, 3 months later, 6 months later. Which that place was under FBI surveillance. So why would they bring Hoffa's body there and incinerate it? It was
Yeah.
under surveillance
I think
already.
that's what people, I think, want to subscribe to, just because of the fact that there's been no recovery of the body. And when you talk about, like, mob hits or mob rub outs, or, hits, or whatever you want to classify this as, usually you always find the remains at some point in time. And if you don't find any remains, that leads me to come to a couple of conclusions. Number
Yeah,
one, it had to be very few people involved. And number
right.
two, everybody involved outside of any witnesses such as yourself that you're saying you've seen this happen, everybody kept their mouth shut, because this is largely the best, I want to say, kept secret in the last 50 years, especially when it involves a high profile. And this isn't a random Joe that nobody knows, that he's only got 4 or 5 people looking for him. This was a known guy that was known throughout the world. He's had 2 movies written about him. I'm sure a couple of books written about him. I mean, Jack Nicholson played him, in the original Hoffa years ago, back in, I think, the 90s. And then, Al Pacino played him in the Scorsese Kill the Irishman that they had a couple years ago. So this is not an average person that nobody knows. So the fact that it's
Right.
still not been found, just it's really, really compelling. Yeah, so that just leads me to believe that, he's got to be somewhere, like you're saying, either in incineration, which I guess lends some credibility to that, or somewhere like what you're saying in basically a stone concrete wall that would really be the last place anybody would look. It's kind of like, you're hiding him in plain sight, so to speak.
Yeah, ain't that one? Ain't that something? I mean,
Yeah.
it's like he's in the cornerstone of the building. It's Ford Henry Ford the third used to own the building,
Yeah, and
and
you're not gonna go just start ripping it up all willy-nilly, and at least back then, there was nowhere near close to the, technology to be able to try to see through, any kind of sonar equipment or whatever that see through the cement. So,
right,
thinking of it in those terms, it really is kind of an ingenious place to put him because he's right there in front of everybody. Everybody's probably gonna be looking elsewhere. You're not gonna tear the building down. Even it'd probably be even hard to convince somebody as it is now to go in and try to look for him. So it's I can see why you're kind of met with some resistance. Let me ask you this. If, say in a year from now with everything that you got going with Eric and Scott, and we can, come up with the money to get these people to come in there. If Hava's body is found, what does that do for you?
well, basically, Chip, it brings closure to the Yarbrough family and the Hoffa family.
Mhm.
Uh, it gets a burden off my chest that I've been carrying around for the last 50 years, which
Now,
is a heavy burden.
is that burden more so because people don't believe you, or because you've seen this happen and you want to bring some justice and prove that you were, telling the truth all this time?
Well, it's a combination of both. It's a combination that I'm tired of thinking about it, talking about it. I'm tired of people not believing me,
Mhm.
and I would like to show the world that this man is actually there. You know what I mean?
Right.
We've been running around all around America looking for him. And I'm the only person that really knows where he's at.
Mhm.
You would think that that would be a very, very comforting thing to know that we finally found this man. His remains. And they got DNA
And a
now. They
eas
didn't have it back then. You know.
Right, and an easy thing to either prove or disprove. I would assume that by now there's gotta be something that they can use to, look in there and see if there's anything in that concrete. I mean, with the equipment
Yeah,
and
they
advances
got
in technology.
ground. Right, they got the ground penetration devices that go down, quite a ways to see the void. And
Right.
once they see the void, they can drill down in there and get DNA. They didn't have none of this up until 2001. You know,
Right, which is why that would be a plausible, dumping place for somebody, because in those times you're not thinking about any of that. You're not looking in 2020, 5, and by then, like you said, most of the characters that are involved in this are long gone, so it doesn't matter anyway. Um,
right.
so I'm really, interested to see how this plays out. I want you to keep us up to date and keep in contact with us and let us know, the ins and outs of this. Do you have any social medias that people can go to follow you and keep up with this as well from your page? Because I'm assuming you post regular updates.
Yeah, you can see me all on YouTube, TikTok. You can go to Fox Nation. I'm on Fox Nation. I'm on the History Channel with Lawrence Fishburne. Uh,
Yes.
I'm all over the place, man. I'm with you.
Yeah.
And you can make some things happen if you could help us out with the donation to get the ground penetration crew there. We could schedule an appointment to get you down here with cameras or whatever you like. And like I said, I got two private eyes that are trying to work on it. But we're strapped for cash right now. But who knows?
Right.
Tomorrow we might have it. I don't know. But you're
Yeah.
welcome to come down to check out the things. I can keep you up to date on when we're going in and stuff. I'm
I
trying to
would
get in there.
love to do that. I've never
Yeah, I'm
been to
trying.
Detroit, so I mean that would be a good reason to come, a good subject matter to, cover while I'm down there. And what are you looking at right now, dollar amount that you need to try to raise to be able to check this out?
Well, we got the contract at $1,000. We done
Okay.
got it down to that far. So once we get the $1,000, we're gonna schedule the date and the time, And whoever want to come in there with us, welcome to come. I mean, there's no restrictions on it as far as FBI jurisdiction or nothing, or state police jurisdiction. It's just us. And once
Right.
we find it, then we just go to FBI and let them do whatever they want to do. In the Michigan
Um,
State.
and I know this isn't, the burning reason why you're pushing this, but and I'm not even sure. Is there any sort of reward for his remains there right now?
Yeah, the FBI has a reward. The Hoffa family has a reward. It's substantial. Uh, Once he's discovered, the reward money would be available, so you would get reimbursed
Well,
whatever.
that's the point I was driving at is I don't want it to seem that it was coming across as nefarious, but if we can put this out that, people that would either donate or put this money up, I mean, if you get 10 people to put up $100 and just say you can be reimbursed that times 10 or some amount, you know what I'm saying?
Sure.
If he's recovered, then, that's why wouldn't you do that? And I think we can maybe put something together and put that out there. Hey, if we can get 10 people to put up $100, if we go in there and they find them, you're looking at making, back 1,000. Who wouldn't want to put up $100 to win 1,000?
Right. I would
Oh,
give even
yeah,
more than that out of reward money. I mean, if
yeah.
somebody was willing to help us get in there right away, it would
Mhm.
be more than $1,000 coming back. Trust me,
Right.
at least ten
Okay, so
thousand.
I was just spitballing. What number would you think? Because I don't know the reward number. I was just curious.
Well, it's 200,000. So you
Okay,
take it
so
from
yeah,
there.
yeah. So you might even could go 10,000 and sweeten somebody's pot that comes in
Exactly.
there. Yeah,
Because you're looking at royalties, you're looking at books, you're looking at movies. I mean,
yeah.
all of
Those
that's
other
going to
stuff.
come
So
into play.
yeah,
All that's going to come into play. But the most important thing is get this man's remains out of that building. You
right,
know, eh, Even if you don't believe me, there's somebody in that building. I know 100% is him, but there's a man's human remains in that building, and law enforcement should take my story seriously, and go in there and get this man out. As simple
right.
as that. This is not a joke. This is not a game. This is for real. This is the
Mhm.
truth. You're looking at the truth right here on your screen right now of a person that actually witnessed Jimmy Hoffa get buried alive and was almost killed by Thomas Andretta, one of the mob figures that were suspects that flew in here. I don't know how true that film is, that him, Gabe Bergoglio, and Sal Bergoglio flew in here to Pontiac Airport on the 29th, and they had a meeting. You can talk to Scott Bernstein about all this. They had a meeting at Chop's Carl's Chop House on Grand River, all plotting the hit the day before. Uh, uh, Provenzano was there. Anthony Tony Jack Alone was there. McMaster was there. Stephen Andretta was there. Thomas Andretta was there. Bergoglio brothers was there. Sal Bergoglio and Gabriel Bergoglio was there, plotting this prior to. And at the time, at the Book Cadillac Hotel around the corner, at the same day, around the same time, Jimmy Hoffa and the mayor, Coleman A. Young, was sitting there doing a pro quo about some business that they was trying to get going on in the city of Detroit.
Mhm.
So that never happened because he got killed, 30 years. So all of
Right,
that, Scott can tell you in more detail about all of that.
right. And then Mayor Coleman Young's a interesting figure in itself. I believe he was the first black mayor of Detroit.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Funny part about it too, Chip, is that Carl's Chop House is right on West Grand River, which is the route that I believe Chucky O'Brien and the mobsters that were in the car with Hoffa when they left the Marcus Red Fox in Bloomfield Township. The route that they took was from Telegraph Road down to Southfield, Michigan, where they pulled behind the Raleigh House, which witnesses saw they pulled behind the Raleigh House. And at that point right there, I believe that's where they put Hoffa in the trunk of that car after
Mhm.
they got from struggling with him in the back seat. Uh, That's because the reason why I know is because Michigan State Police dogs K9 unit detected Hoffa scent in the back seat,
Mm-hmm.
DNA of his hair in the back seat, and his scent was detected in the trunk of the car. And when I saw the car at the crime scene, the trunk was up and the lights were on, and the driver's door was open. And I saw the fat, chubby guy, which I found out later it was Chucky O'Brien sitting behind the wheel. So, if they can't believe all of that, I mean, this is eyewitness,
Right.
people that actually saw stuff. This is not some made up stuff saying, hey, they took him to some house nearby, shot him in the head, took him, all of a sudden took him down to the incinerator and burned him up in the incinerator in Hamtramck, or they put him in a barrel and took him all the way to New Jersey and buried him in a,
Yeah. I've heard
none
all
of
that
that stuff.
nonsense.
All that was just made up stuff. I don't know why they made it up, but during the process, all this stuff was made up during the time when, like I said, the FBI has been sitting on my information for the last 23 years now, and has done absolutely nothing. Blew dust off of it or threw it in the trash. I went down there so much till they told me to cease and desist, Chip. They was going to arrest me. Going to
Mm.
arrest me for what? Reporting a murder? Okay. So I stopped going down there.
Yeah.
I
Well, it's a
call them
shame.
all the time.
Yeah, it's a shame that it comes to that, but I mean, I think when it's almost like too, do you have to wonder if it's waiting, if it's been such a long time, if you were to be accurate in this, do they have to worry about having egg on their face that it's been there the whole time and you've been telling them about it for years? Are they possibly a little, ashamed of the fact that it was been there the whole time and they didn't find it on their own and they had somebody telling them about it all these years and they chose to ignore it? So there's a lot of things to, wonder why this hadn't been
Yeah,
looked into
I went
farther.
through. I went through so many agents, man. I went through at least 12 agents.
Yeah.
I mean, how many people get egg on their face? I mean, you only got one half of task force that's doing this in the whole United States. One
Yeah.
office is in charge of finding this man. I
And
find
now
that kind of
whoever it
strange.
lands on, it's not like it's going to land. Nobody in that office, I'm assuming right now, covering that case or on that case was probably even around, when he went missing. So it's not like they're going to have to take the heat. But I want you to keep me up to date on this. I think I want to try to put together something, maybe in lieu of a GoFundMe, or at least get you maybe on some bigger platforms to talk and spread this message. I think $1,000 is very doable. Um, I
Yeah,
don't
I
think
think
that's out
so.
of the question. That's very reasonable. And then with the payoff and the press that we can do, um, I think it would be worth it for people to try to contribute to, basically this is a part of history that's still unsolved. It's basically one
Yeah,
of the biggest unsolved murders of a political figure probably ever. Outside of maybe President JFK, we don't, allegedly it was Lee Harvey Oswald, but that's a whole nother podcast and a whole nother can of worms. But
right,
it's the
right.
biggest unsolved ever. And so
Yeah,
I'm
we
really
gotta remember. I'm the only person that's seen it, so
right,
it's not like it's gonna be a dry run. Okay,
right.
the body's there. They didn't
Yeah,
dig it
you
out.
and I watched the video that you said, and I'm probably gonna put it in here where you walked through, you showed them right where it was at, and
coming around to where he's buried at, coming out of 200, Tower 200, and getting ready to enter into Tower 300. As you can see, it's spectacular inside the Renaissance Center. That's the exit doors where the cement truck came in at to bury him. And the burgundy 1975 Mercury Marquise on July 30th, 1975. Getting ready to go inside here now to where Hoffa's buried at. Can't see much because my camera don't reflect through this glass, but that's where the infamous hard hat is for one of the construction workers that killed Jimmy Hoffa. Now you're looking at the actual location of where Jimmy Hoffa's buried at.
if I can get up there to Detroit, it's a place I've never been, so I wouldn't mind visiting. I wouldn't mind going up there myself and seeing, this building and seeing this place that you're talking about. Michael, we're going to
Right.
stay in touch. I'm going to see if I can get you possibly on some bigger programs to help get the word out. Maybe we can get a GoFundMe set up to try to get this team in there to take a look. And, for the family's sake, for your sake, hopefully we can get some closure to this matter, man.
I hope so. I hope so, Chip. I mean, it's been a long time,
Yes, very long.
I'd love to see the expression on Hoffa's sons and daughter's face. They're in their 80s, I believe now. They
Hmm.
retired. And I've contacted them and I've told them about this, but they told me, both of them told me that go to the FBI. The FBI told them to send people to them, to the FBI. They don't want to have nothing to do with it.
Right.
So what can I
Well,
say?
hopefully we can get something going here for you, man. We're going to try our best. And, like I said, we're going to keep in touch. I'm going to put some of your links to some of the things that you've done in the show notes here on YouTube so people can go check more out on your story and definitely keep us in the loop. And if there's any updates, you can more than welcome to come back on and share it with our listeners, my friend.
Okay, man. Hey, look, talk to Scott, and maybe you and Scott can get your heads together, and if you can convince him to, work with us on this, man. He can be down there with his cameras, so he can do some things too. You and
Yeah.
him together, you'd be
Yeah.
first on the scene. So there won't be no blockage. Nobody will be telling you, you can't come in here because we've already opened the door with GM Global Security Manager. He's gave me his phone number. I've given that to the private investigators. And one of the private investigators has law enforcement that's coming in with him. That's all we needed was somebody with a badge. And
Right.
we have, you know, I got my badge, the private investigators got their badges. So we're all legaled up. It's private property. It's not like we got to get a search warrant from the federal court to go in there. So
Right.
we're good. They're talking about moving out next year. So I'm trying to hurry up and get this done before GM moves out completely. And then
Yes.
Dan Gilbert will be owning the building, and he's rich, and he could care less.
Yeah. Okay.
I haven't talked to Dan, but I'm just assuming that.
All right, Michael. I appreciate you coming on and sharing this story, my friend. Like I said, keep us up to date on any updates that come out of it, and we
I
will
will.
definitely have you back on the show.
Yeah, contact me and let me know what you can do as far as a fundraiser. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, I'll see what I can put together. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Hollywood Wade. That was Michael Yarbrough, and unfortunately, we are out of time. Tune in next week for an all new episode of Crime and Entertainment. Michael, we'll see you, my friend.
Okay, thanks, man. Nice meeting
Yes,
you.
sir.